This autumn will bring shocking revelation. When will Donald Trump finally step down? I now have specific timelines to share for this autumn psychic forecast and what that means for our future. For psychic predictions for autumn of 2025, we'll uncover the truth, share some urgent updates on 3i Atlas and what that means for us, what that means for the world, as well as touch on hidden truths and agendas shaping our world right now. Please stick this one out to the end so you don't miss a thing. So starting with the big news on Donald Trump and the effects that that's going to have on the world, here is your autumn psychic forecast. I wanted to do some quick updates today because I've recently got more specific information about what's likely to happen with the Trump presidency and the timeline. We could touch on Charlie Kirk because that's a big deal. And of course, the interstellar object. So basically, for the benefit of the new people, I want to recount the predictions leading up till now. The old people that have been here a while, well, you know what I predicted already, so just bear with me for a second. Because in the beginning, I thought Harris was going to win the election. Yep, psychics are not perfect. Last summer, the summer before the election, I thought she was going to win. But as the summer went on, I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with that prediction. And then I think it was September, maybe the very beginning of October. One night, I just had the idea to remote view into the future in the White House. I did that. I saw Donald Trump as clear as day in my mind sitting in the Oval Office, and I changed my forecast. That can happen as new information becomes available. And not only that, as I went on, I predicted that he'd get inaugurated on time, but there'd be a change in the inauguration, that it would get moved. And then once he was in, he was going to take some very, very swift and decisive action, which all happened. But I also predicted that his presidency would probably only last about 2 years, no more than 2.5 years. Now, as the times was going on, like say in the spring, I was getting feelings like maybe he may not make it through the summer. And then as the summer's come and gone, obviously he's still in office. Later on in the spring, I was thinking, well, maybe the end of September and October. But I always held strong on my prediction that he would last about 2 years after inauguration because I did not get any specific information to the contrary, just kind of general feelings that it may not last that long. And timelines are fluid. They're very, very hard to nail down. Now, as a psychic, I have hits and I have misses. And if you've been following the channel for a while, not everything that I've said has come true, at least not yet. But what I found is that at least 70, if not 80% of the time, the misses are just misses in the timelines, that they do eventually happen, but not in necessarily the timeline that I predicted. So that's very, very common, and timelines are fluid. And every prediction by myself or any other psychic is based on the present now. And if we get visions or feelings, we tend to pick up what's going on in the now and project what may happen in the future. But if we change the energy of the now, that can change the timelines. Some timelines are already set based on what's already happened. Things have to play out. Others are still variable, and we can uplift our energy and our vibrations in the now to change some of the more troubling predictions and to make some of the better predictions to come true. So in any event, I've been getting feelings that something was going to happen before that, but now I've got some more specific information to draw on. And what happened was that I'd say it was about last week. I was meditating and I asked Spirit, I asked my guides, and they showed me February. They showed me that given the current energy, that what's playing out, that Donald Trump will probably step down or be forced down around February now of 2026. Now I have to say, a little bit later on, they were giving me the number 11 also. Is that February the 11th? Or is it possibly that November is a timeline that it could happen? Now understand, I'm not pro or against Trump. I see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not warm on the Democrats either. I really see this as largely a show, to be honest, and that the same forces basically control both parties. So with that in mind, this isn't coming from my personal prejudices. I really do my best to get out of my own way and to draw directly from spirit. And honestly, for me, the timelines just were not completely set in stone. I'll put it to you that way. But now I feel like I've got something. Now that could still change. And the bottom line is that with this administration with Donald Trump, and let me peek in my notes for a second. Oh, okay. I need to back up for a second. The reasons that I see him possibly stepping down, at least that's my new prediction now, around February. I mean, again, timelines are fluid. Health will be the main thing. And then in the month of May, I think it was, April or May, I had this vision of Donald Trump motionless on a hospital gurney with a lot of IVs. I put that out on a short and a long video. And then he disappeared for 3 to 4 days from social media. Then when he came back in the month of May, that's when a lot of the pictures you were seeing of him like tripping or being unstable on his feet came up. I believe that he had a cardiac, not event, but a procedure. Probably a stent if he was back 3 to 4 days later. It could have been a pacemaker because it appears he has congestive heart failure. But anyway, that said, though health may be cited as the reason if he does indeed step down at the time predicted or even before that, but there's also the specter of like the Epstein files and that there may be movement towards impeachment or enacting the 25th Amendment stating that he's not fit for office. But I think health will be the reason or will be the excuse as that happens. Because not to misunderstand, I do believe that there are significant health issues. It shows in his energy and persona, but perhaps not to the point where he can't completely function as president. Other ex-presidents have been more ill from what I'm seeing. But in any event, at the end of the day, it's largely a show. Certain powers wanted Trump to, because he has a very strong following, he has very loyal people, that he could get in there, enact certain executive orders, and sign bills that other presidents may not have been able to get away with. That didn't have such a strong following. Polarize things further, deepen the divide, create further distraction, so that the powers that be that control both parties and a lot that goes on in the world can then put more of one of their loyalists in, like Vance, because Trump is an outlier and he's always going to be his own person, love him or hate him. And from a spiritual perspective, there's a reason this is all happening. It's reflective of collective consciousness. It's the coyote or the trickster in my way of seeing things, getting us to awaken. So through a lot of the chaos and a lot of the challenges, more people will wake up, see beyond the illusion, see behind the events and what's really going on. And then he'll, ride off into the sunset or whatever happens to Donald Trump. But in any event, that's what I get about that. The same forces are controlling both parties, and there isn't a deeper agenda going on. So don't be distracted. Be aware, be in your heart, be in your power, and understand that nothing's written in stone. And if we change our vibration collectively, if we change it now, that'll change how certain events play out in the future. But as of right now, look for around, I'll say November through February, but especially February, just because the number 11 also came up. So speaking of Kirk, were we speaking of Kirk? I just did a little bit of sensing of that, and I'm skeptical in terms of if the alleged shooter was really the shooter, and if there wasn't an agenda behind that, again, to create more anger, more hatred, to deepen the divide and to distract people. But perhaps if it comes out more, I may do a little bit more on that, but it feels like it was an inside job, and we'll see how that plays out anyway. So let me move on. Let's go into 3-Eye Atlas. So that'll be the next thing on the agenda. Now, interestingly, I did some remote viewing. I did that in August. I didn't know the reason, but I got the message from Spirit on the thumbnail to use a green comet as part of that. Now, just the last week, they found some green colorations in the coma. But the interesting thing is there's also a brand new comet that was discovered that's called Swan, SWAN. I forgot all the numbers after it. That was hidden by the sun, so they didn't find it, but it's really close to Mars, and this might have been the other object that I said that was going to be discovered, and that happened basically. So moving right along with that, I remote viewed it in August. I got a sense of life, a sense of consciousness, a sense like it was a being. I mean, chances are, and science would validate, chances are it is an interstellar object, it's rock, it's gas, but there's also energy. Like everything's alive, but it felt like there's consciousness and and everything. So I got that sense. And another interesting is that when I remote viewed, I got it was very dense, smaller than maybe what they thought, but very, very dense and heavy, and that nickel was in it. But I wasn't picking up on iron. And honestly, I did more research and found out that virtually all meteors have nickel in it, but they also have iron. You do not find nickel without iron in the solar system. So that's a very interesting development also, as well as I saw carbon, and there's a lot of CO2 that's outgassing everything. And I'll likely remote view it again to see if I can get more details, but I got the sense that it had consciousness, that it was exchanging information with the universe. I didn't feel like it was an alien craft, like there was life aboard it, but I did feel like it was alive on some level of life or consciousness and energy and everything that's been happening. Like initially the coma was extending in front of it rather than behind, but that could be explained by the dynamics with the circuitry of the sun and the electrical circuitry of the sun and the inner solar system as it was approaching. Then it's starting to outgas the way normal comets do, through the solar wind and everything. And that it was illuminated brighter than it should have been, but also with a lot of carbon and other things. I believe it's taking on a crystalline form that through its chemistry that it's able to create illumination, almost like a bioluminescence, but it's not really biological the way that we understand it. So anyway, these are a few things, but let me explain the importance of that because well, firstly, a lot of people still conjecture whether this is something alien or if it's a craft or if it is alive. Now, science can explain everything that it's an interstellar object, but we don't have enough proof. So it could be alien, it could be a manned craft, it could be a probe of some kind, it could be a conscious life form. So until we know, all possibilities are on the table. But I did get a sense of consciousness, a sense of energy, a sense of purpose with it. And I do believe it's an emissary of some kind of higher consciousness that's working with humanity, that's, helping with our upgrades. But anyway, what this means is that as it gets closer to the sun and interacts with Mars, it creates a lot of different dynamics with planetary geometry. And now we have another player. It's got a huge coma, almost half the diameter of the sun. It's low density, but it has plasma. That's basically ions, streams of ions. It's electrical in nature. It affects the electricity and the magnetism of the sun. So as it gets closer, it's going to excite the sun, more solar flares, more coronal mass ejection, filament ejection. That affects the Earth. That energizes the Earth. The long and the short of it is that there's going to be more in the way of like earthquakes, volcanoes. It's going to feed storms like hurricanes. So there's probably going to be one or two very powerful hurricanes still coming up. And I have this all in a longer forecast that I'll share with you in a second. And all that stuff's on the table. The end of September, there's probably going to be some big solar flares and activities. Now, watch the New Madrid fault and the fault system around Tennessee and the Carolinas. That's been getting my attention lately. Also, the area off of the Pacific Northwest, to the Aleutians, to the Arcadia subduction zone, maybe a little bit farther west in that area for the propagation of tsunamis. I got a vision of that. I got it for September, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen in September. And it may not happen at all, but that potential exists. Also, California and the fault system, South America. So, a lot of areas on the table, but I do expect an increase in seismic as well as volcanic activity this autumn, partly related to the 3-eye atlas and the effects that it has on the sun, the inner solar system, and on the earth, as well as other factors. And a lot of increases in the light codes that get emitted from the sun. So we had these big flares and events. There's a lot of energy that gets released from the sun that comes into the earth fields and into the collective conscious fields, and it creates upgrades. It activates DNA and allows us to tap into higher consciousness, things that we may have forgotten about our own spirits and our own natures and our place in the universe and the trajectory of humanity. So it's going to be a really, really big time for awakening. And I've got a lot more information on a longer video, more predictions, and a video right here for the autumn psychic forecast. You can check that out here. And I'll put a video here that explains more of what I got on 3-eye atlas for remote viewing. So check those out if you want to get all the details and the predictions of what's coming up. And I hope that this was helpful in sorting out the timeline. And we'll see you in the next video.